When women put their hands to something, it moves, right? Whether it's in voting, whether it is in our communities. And so when you think of the social impact sector, where there is a focus on a particular mission, whether that is improving the quality of life, we are creatures that just do that. And so it's exciting even now to see the number of women that are not only continue to come into this particular sector, but are being elevated.
COACT is a woman-led organization, so when it comes to elevating women, we're most definitely here for it.
I am Cheryl P. Johnson, Chief Executive Director of COTS, celebrating 40 years this year. Woo!
I am Amy Peterson. I am the co-founder and CEO of Rebel Nell. We are a social enterprise based right here in Detroit.
Hi, I'm Terry Barclay. I'm president and CEO of Inforum. We're the largest network of professional women in Michigan.
And I'm Sharnae Sanders. Happy Women's History Month and welcome to Natural Collisions, brought to you by COACT Detroit. Conversations about the challenges and opportunities in the nonprofit sector, highlighting the voices in nonprofit work in Detroit and Southeast Michigan. This month, we're focusing on women, the ones who are and have been leading the work that holds our society together. Today's guests are Amy Peterson of Rebel Nell.
We are a social enterprise based right here in Detroit. We exist to provide employment, equitable opportunity, and wraparound support for women with barriers to employment. And we make unique, one-of-a-kind jewelry out of repurposed material.
And Cheryl P. Johnson on the Coalition on Temporary Shelter, or COTS.
COTS has, a pretty deep history here in the city of Detroit, providing an array of housing and support services. We've evolved over the last 8 years to really focus on families and eradicating poverty and creating opportunities for our families to succeed.
And last but not least, Terry Barclay on her work at Inforum,
a nonprofit that focuses on accelerating careers for women and being a catalyst that removes barriers and increases opportunities. Our slogan is sort of see what's possible and get there faster.
These leaders are transforming the way their fellow women in Southeast Michigan live, work, and thrive. And though they have over 50 years of experience between the three of them, women's leadership in the nonprofit and social impact sector goes back way further than this. Women have historically been the ones leading the work, and Cheryl, Amy, and Terry each have their own take on why women do dominate the nonprofit sector.
In many sectors, women don't dominate, right? So to actually highlight what I refer to as a social impact sector. One, historically, women have always been nurturing, right? They are caring entities that see things that other people don't see. And I will add another thing: when women put their hands to something, it moves, right? Whether it's in voting, whether it is in our communities. And so when you think of the social impact sector, where there is a focus on a particular mission, whether that is improving the quality of life or other things, there are a number of areas that these organizations highlight. Women are really, it comes easy, right? It just comes easy because we are creatures that just do that. And so it's exciting even now to see the number of women that are not only continue to come into this particular sector, but are being elevated. And I think that's something we should really talk about, especially during this particular month of how we continue to make sure we honor and acknowledge the wonderful work that women are doing, not only in our region, but in our world.
So I'm just going to jump in, Cheryl. I love the way you framed this, and I love your positive approach as the CEO of a nonprofit business organization. I think the other side of the coin, quite frankly, is that nonprofit leadership roles were one avenue that was open to women stepping in and leading. There are many other segments of our economy where the door has been pretty firmly shut uh, for women to enter and lead for decades, really. And thank goodness we see significant change and movement in that regard. And I think the competition for top talent has reached a point that companies everywhere have realized that they can't leave half that talent sitting on the sidelines, that it's really important that they find ways to recruit and develop women. But women were early in, I think, in the nonprofit sector because they could be.
And I
And
love that.
Jerry, to echo what,
Thank you for giving the other side of the coin.
and I even think like like Rebel Nell was created as a result of the opportunities not being there from a personal level and what I was aspiring to do in my own profession. I was coming from the sports world, which historically has not been the most um, open for women in careers, and particularly in my aspirations were to be on the baseball, the player acquisition side. And because of the roadblocks there, is what actually and ultimately led to the creation of Rebel Nell. And it is a comforting and welcoming space. There's so much empathy on this side that women just are incredible at exuding empathy and understanding situations. And that's where I think women are able to thrive on this side of the coin, um, and really like showcase how truly great a world can be if we really take the time and listen and care about one another. And women tend to shine in that spotlight.
Well, and oh, by the way, the two of you, I mean, this sector was open to women, but I just love the way it's grown and developed over the years. This is going back some. We are celebrating Women's History Month for women. I remember when Frances. Now I'm showing my age, but I remember when Frances Hesselbein was CEO of the Girl Scouts, and Peter Drucker was sort of the management writer who had great fame at that time. And I'll never forget it when he said, you know, for profit organizations could learn a lot from studying how Frances Hesselbein leads the Girl Scouts. And so, it's been wonderful to see now the maturing of the sector and people really understanding that the women who are so often the leaders, by the way, they're incredibly talented executives. You have to be if you're going to be a successful nonprofit exec.
It goes without saying that the social impact women make in this sector is outstanding and so necessary. Despite that, women have suffered during the pandemic. More and more, we've dropped out of the workforce due to a myriad of issues. Places of work shutting down, lack of childcare, managing virtual learning for children at home, illness, you name it. It's nothing new that women wear many hats, and this has definitely had an impact on our community and the work they do.
There was a narrative formed during this pandemic that really was so unfair especially to women. I mean, it was just a broad narrative, but I'm going to focus on women. I went into a very nice restaurant, and I dare not say the name of it because I'm really mad at them. And I went in there for dinner, and there was a sign that said, pardon, be patient with us because um, people don't want to work. I was seething, and I realized that this has been a narrative during this entire pandemic, And you see it on signs, thank the people that showed up for work, because the rest of them, and really the rest of them, were people who, the narrative was around, people just took advantage. The government gave some money and they decided they just didn't want to work. And no one, first of all, there's no evidence of that. There's no evidence of that. Secondly, when you look at the numbers of people that were impacted, particularly women, by this pandemic, and the choices that they had to make during this time, it was incredible. First, the whole issue of childcare. Your children now are having to be at home. You have to be at home, right? And you're managing. And I'm a mother of four. I am so grateful to God that my children were adults during this particular time. Just the thought of managing their education myself, and then trying to work from home and run a business, it's just mind blowing. So I really had no appreciation for the narrative, and really gave great pushback, to people. There was a businessman, that made that statement to me. He said, just people just don't want to work. I said, can you name? I said, so you know a lot of people. Name one woman that you know, just one, that you can say that is applicable to. And he started scratching his head, and so he was one that just jumped on the bandwagon. Women, if you look at numbers across the country of the number of women who during this period have transitioned themselves into starting businesses, who realize, oh, by the way, I can make more money doing something creative. And all of that was birthed out of this, being at home and people creatively thinking about how they can manage their lives and not go back into the same routine of being underpaid and under acknowledged. And I'm hopeful that we will really learn from this, and that we will do a much better job of acknowledging our workforce, particularly women in it.
Spot on, Cheryl. I mean, my goodness. And all of the data supports everything you're saying. I mean, what was interesting to me was in 2019, right before the pandemic, women had finally, it was always close to 50% labor force participation, or 50% of the workforce. In 2019, women were actually the majority of the workforce, but that came to a screeching halt with the pandemic and started reversing. And the example I like to use, I sure hope we're going to learn from this. I mean, the sheer, the stage where I am, I have a lot of friends who have retired. Well, they turned into overnight childcare providers for their grandchildren, and they firmly acknowledge there's no way that if the tables had been turned, a lot of those people were single moms when they, and they just said, if this hit when my kids, to your point, they said, they have no idea what they would have done.
And I couldn't agree more. That was our biggest challenge as, as an active like employer and constantly seeking talent. It was not for the lack of interest or with the resumes. It was the childcare that was always the major hurdle. Affordable childcare is a huge problem in our country. But and I like kind of our two sides of the coin scenario that you started, Terry, because one of the other beautiful things that I wasn't expecting to come from the pandemic is everyone's pause and reflection during this time. And we are at the point, where we're growing and we're hiring a lot more management level team members, and we do a lot of promoting from within. But we're starting to post jobs now, and the talent that is coming to us in droves is mind blowing. And yes, we are a small business. We put our people and our profit the same line, so you're not going to make a gajillion dollars working for us. That is very clear and obvious. But we're attracting all this incredible female talent from all these big companies who are like, if I'm going to work, I want to have impact. I want to make a difference in life. And to me, it's really humbling and beautiful to see who's coming to us. my business partner and I, when we throw these out there on LinkedIn, we just are like, well, we'll see what happens. Thinking that there's this, this narrative out there that maybe people aren't wanting to work, or whatever the case may be. And man, and we've been proved wrong time and time again. And to hear them explain why they want to come here. So this mind shift is beautiful, where you want to have an impact with your job. You want to have this focus of a lasting legacy, especially in the experienced career level. So that's been really unique to see, in one of those odd silver linings that I think is coming from the pandemic.
I just love both of those sentiments are so spot on. And, Amy, you really made me think. We recently, our focus is to provide opportunity and develop our own small staff. And I'm knocking on wood here because, we heard all the stories about the Great Resignation and people making those choices, like Cheryl said, based on their values. And so there's a lot of opportunity out there right now. And to your point, Amy, we can't pay what a Fortune 50 company pays. But we can offer purpose, and we can offer impact and meaning in every one of the jobs we had. So we had one of our entry level people leave for a wonderful opportunity. And I was sitting there thinking, oh dear, now our goose is cooked. It's like we've got to go out there and compete with all these big companies, to try to hire someone. We've never filled a position so quickly in our history. I mean, we had wonderful people apply, and I think it is maybe this is the silver lining for the nonprofit sector is we do have something really valuable to offer.
I love that the P word purpose. I love that. Every time I hear someone genuinely use that word purpose, it makes me smile because the opportunity to actually walk in purpose it's more than any dividend that you can receive elsewhere. To actually be able to like walk in the place, the space, doing the things that you were created to do. And I know all of us have heard, people and know of people who have walked away from jobs with, they're paid zillions of dollars because it didn't matter. Like, and that's not to say money is important because that's a whole nother thing, we need to focus on is, what people are being paid. That's a whole nother conversation. That does matter because you need to make a good living, right? But to actually to be able to walk in your purpose and every night to lay your head down and to be able to smile and take that whole day in, even when it's hard, even when it's difficult, you know that you've had an impact, right? And that's my life. Like that's all I want is to be able to fully experience purpose. And when I'm long gone, I want every pebble that I've thrown into a creek and those ripples are out there still moving. I just want them to go from generation to generation. And I think we have an opportunity to do that when we're walking in our purpose.
As Cheryl, Terry, and Amy have pointed out, COVID-19 has been devastating, especially for women. But that doesn't mean there wasn't a silver lining in the work they do. For instance, Inforum has actually attracted more members.
I've got to tell you, we've got this amazing team and an amazing board that helped us. So our membership actually grew 32%, and our impact and reach did as well. we now have women who are involved outside of the borders of Michigan, actually globally. We have members from all over the world now, all in search of that supportive environment and opportunities to come together to discuss those topics of how do you continue to lead with empathy? How do you connect and support your teams differently in this virtual environment? And it also allowed the silver lining of the virtual environment is it allows people to time shift so that they can tap into community when they're ready or they have that moment where they can do that. And we worked hard to provide the tools. Like we just launched, we've had this dream for a long time, to launch an Inforum, our first ever Inforum app. And that allows people to connect with each other, at those strange times of day when they're able to.
And COTS implemented a 3-pronged effort to support mothers as they move back into the workforce.
Now that our families are going back and getting back into the workforce, was some of them have these non-traditional hours of work, and childcare does not support that. And we've been able to create a family development center to support our families doing that. Kellogg came through with a great grant for us that allowed us to actually create non-traditional hours for childcare, for particularly for our family members who are residing in the shelter. We're really excited about a mother who has to go to work at midnight and being able to leave her child in a safe environment where they know that child is going to be taken care of. And so we've really been excited about this. Is a dream come true. But the other thing comes really at I think an opportunity to make this more robust, especially for our mothers who oftentimes feel they are invisible, like nobody sees us, right? And keep in mind that our families are in the middle of a traumatic experience because they're all homeless, right? Those that are in the emergency shelter that I'm referring to. So to hear them means to say, I acknowledge you. So we have these listening sessions. I think Amy, you may have come to one of them, but we have listening sessions where we invite our partners, funders, and people who are interested in our work to come and to listen to the voices of our families. And it highlights the movement from I see you to now I understand you. So in those listening sessions, we always say there's no judgment. In other words, you can't ask a question like, why did you have 5 kids? Like, why did you do this? There's no judgment here. You listen to the hearts of our families, and then they talk about their futures, like their hopes and their dreams. And there's so much that we walk away from learning and hearing, that our families have the same hopes and dreams that I have had for my kids, right? They have the same aspirations, but there are these barriers that just get in the way every time. And then the third leg of that for us is how we amplify that voice. Now we move into advocacy for them, teaching them how to advocate for themselves. I can't tell you the number of times a mom has gone to the hospital with her sick child, and she comes back and we ask the question, so what did the doctor say? And she says, I don't know. I didn't understand, but he gave me this medicine to give the baby. Well, what is the medicine? I don't know, but and so we're teaching them, you have a right. You have a right to say to the doctor, I don't understand you. Can you talk to me in a way that I understand what's going on with my child. And you have a right to leave that hospital with a clear understanding of what's expected, right? And so we're doing that even with school, how parents interact with their children in school when there's an issue, when there is a IEP, and there's a lot of kids have been labeled. Like, what does that mean? What does that mean when you say that about my child? And it is powerful now that as parents begin, especially our mothers, begin to take on this role of understanding in their lives on behalf of their kids, how this transcends over to the way our kids are understanding their place in life.
And for Rebel Nail, this time has sparked a renewed emphasis on the purpose behind their work with women, as well as something we value so much here at COACT: self care.
My business partner and I, the last year was really challenging for us because then it's kind of the weight of the world comes back on your shoulders, and we had to assess how to be a good leader, and that meant doing some soul searching on our own selves, like making sure we were okay. You have to be so strong for everybody. They're looking to you. But now all the floodgates of all of everything we were holding back personally. So now I think it's important to talk about as a leader. This is, and I'm not good at it. I am not. So maybe talking about it will make me better. Is taking that time to pause for yourself, to give yourself a little bit of rest, to take care of yourself because you are one human and you carry the weight of everybody on your shoulders. That to be a good leader, I know for my own sanity, for my family's sake, for my business sake, I need to release a little bit. I just think that's something that's important to state because as women leaders, and especially in this space, and especially women, we have we tend to do that, and we carry the torch for so many, that it's okay to go in a corner and cry for a little bit if you need to.
And Amy, let me just say this. I think here's the lesson that I learned when you said that. And exhaustion is a kind word that I'm gonna use. It's kind exhaustion, right?
You know me, I usually have the mouth of a sailor, so I'm trying to
Yeah,
be
but
politically
this
correct,
this this
Amy.
pandemic was amazingly disruptive. It was disruptive for everything in every aspect of our being was impacted by this, and so it wasn't until in a meeting with my staff that and this is to your point about how we as leaders, especially women, show up and we feel, we're carrying the weight of the world and we can't let people see us cry. We can't do any of that, right? That the moment I acknowledge my exhaustion to my team was the moment they responded and they said, I'll never forget, one of my chief development officer, Asha, said, thank you for saying that. Because then they started to look at us as these,
You're human.
right, yeah, yeah, like we're breaking over here, but you, you,
Yeah.
you have no sign of that. And so I do think this whole idea of self care during this period of time. I just told someone the other day, look, self care is necessary and it is not a selfish word at all. And it is a necessary thing. It literally comes at a price when we don't do that. People will suffer because of it. And so I backed away and you get, hey, I'm good. Hey, I'm great. Look, I'm not great today, guys. I need some space today because that's human.
That's really great. The only thing I can think of to add is that it always helps me shift my perspective if I but, taking every opportunity to lift up other women, and just celebrate them. Sometimes you have to back off from that, but then when you return to it, I find that it feeds me, to be able to do that. And like my friend Amy here, I know that the people who are listening can't see, but I'm wearing my vintage Rebel Nell earrings.
I knew they were. I kept looking, Terry. I kept looking. I said, I think
Yeah.
those
You know
are
these
from
Rebel
Rebel
Nell
Yell.
earrings, right? Exactly. And I have a beautiful bracelet that was the gift for the Crane's 100 Most Influential Women list this year. And it just makes me happy to know that even when I get dressed in the morning, my friend Amy is with me and all of the great things that she does. So
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. You can't market better than that.
I know. Your commission check's in the mail, Terry. But that's also, I think you bring up a good point, and I know this is like we're women focused, but there is I get a natural high from assisting other women. Like I love it. I literally, and it's self-serving in many ways. I love making those connections. I love seeing how we can do it. In fact, we just came out with our second year in a row of this small business female founders book. It's just a way to highlight Detroit small owned businesses who don't get as much attention as maybe Rebel Nell does, but we can use our platform to do it. I love it. So I hear you, Terry, and thank you. Both of you actually are the reason. A lot of you are the reasons I started this business. So I like love and hate you all at the same time. No, I'm very grateful. This is walking in my own, finding my greater purpose, and I love it. So I owe you both a huge debt of gratitude.
You do it well, Amy. Honestly, you do it well. Terry has been, I call her, she's an icon. Let's just say it. You are. And look, here's the thing. Women especially in our Detroit area have not gotten the acknowledgement, and they do their thing in our region, they do their thing, and then they kind of phase out, and there's no acknowledgement of the work, of the investment, of the impact that they've had at all. And shame on us. So I think this is an opportunity. People kind of fade out into the sunset, right? People retire, and yet we are benefiting from all of the investment in their lives. So, good for you, Amy. You're lifting people up, and it's going to outlive you. That's the wonderful thing about that. It's going to outlive you, and that's the excitement to be able to have that. That's the legacy right there.
Speaking of legacy, the world of social impact is ages old and it isn't going anywhere. I asked Terry, Amy, and Cheryl to boldly dream out loud about women and the future of this work.
It's going to be big. Let me just say that it's going to be big. So I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about leadership. I think we're now being better about succession planning. Who's to come in our shoes. Every now and then someone will ask me the question, so when are you retiring? First, I'm insulted by it, and I'm like, why? Like, why? I still have a lot of energy and innovation left in me to give to this sector, and for all of that, at the same time, I'm pouring into those that are coming behind. So I think there is just some great opportunities for this sector.
I think that the career opportunities within social impact are growing quickly, particularly as that becomes more of a factor for companies with their own investors. They need people who are skilled in this space. And so that just broadens the market for the skills that are developed through and knowledge that are developed through social impact work. I think women are uniquely positioned to have a real visibility and impact. And I would encourage anybody who's starting their career to look at this sector. The future is just going to grow and be even brighter.
I think it is the wave of the future. And what is so beautiful is from a brand perspective and a small business or business perspective of selling from the retail and product side, is there is this growing and very strong group of conscious consumers who are pushing this. And businesses have to be transparent. They have to be socially responsible. And if they're not, they're going to lose this really strong, powerful consumer group. So that is also, it's not only like on the business side, and frankly, it's beautiful. I get probably 3 to 5 emails a week from startups that are like, I want to have a business model like Rebel Now. How do you do it? And frankly, we started a nonprofit called Teach, Empower, Achieve that does that. It's going to go out and help other small businesses who want to have a measurable impact, particularly with employment. But it's the consumers that have the real power. Money talks, and it's the consumers that are driving this, that want to see a more equitable world and want to see more opportunities out there. And that is a beautiful thing, because that's where the fact that this trend of conscious consumers is just, I think, amazing and moving a lot of brands to think differently as they start.
Thank you to Terry Barclay, President and CEO of Inforum. You can learn more about her work at inforummichigan.org. Thank you to Amy Peterson, co-founder and CEO of Rebel Now. Be sure to check out her work at www.rebelnow.com, and that's Nail with 2 L's. And many thanks to Cheryl P. Johnson, Chief Executive Officer of Coalition on Temporary Shelter. Learn more about her work at cotsdetroit.org. This has been Natural Collision Podcast from COAC Detroit. Remember, the word COAC itself means to work together, because we know we cannot have transformational impact if we only work alone. Speaking of impact, if you're someone who does a lot of delegating, but it doesn't seem to be working, check out this month's session of our Nonprofit Wellbeing Series. Discover some best practices on delegating more effectively so you can work smarter as opposed to harder. And did you know that COAC Detroit is hiring? If you're into coordinating grants and other programming, you love the impact the nonprofit sector has in Southeast Michigan, and you're looking for a supportive and passion-oriented work environment, consider coming to work with us. To learn more about all of this and any of our work, visit coacdetroit.org. Please subscribe to Natural Collisions on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We will return with more conversations soon. Thank you for listening.